Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the fanfiction guy. Back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Nimitz Deku had Warship Quirk? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Izuku Nimitz, Midoriya was a 15-year-old boy with a unique quirk known as One for All, which he inherited from All Might a year after entering the world of My Hero Academia. Standing at 5 feet 10 inches, he had a striking appearance that set him apart. His ship was the USS Nimitz, and he often carried a sword in his right hand, using it skillfully in battle. Izuku had a deep admiration for the characters of Azur, including Nizu, Aizawa, and the rest of the UA staff, as well as his classmates from both Class 1A and Class 1B, excluding Mineta. He enjoyed video games and dedicated his time to helping at quirkless hospitals. However, he had a strong dislike for sirens, villains, and those who showed a complete disregard for human life. In his backstory, Izuku was the only male ship in Azur and had participated in numerous battles. During a critical conflict, he displayed his signature smile, which brought unity among the factions of Azur. At just 13 years old, he led the ships against the Sirens, ultimately pushing them into a final stand. Despite the destruction and loss, his strategies prevailed, securing victory for his allies. After the final battle, Izuku was exhausted and surveyed the wreckage around him, spotting unfamiliar parts of ships and sirens. He felt a surge of triumph as he realized they had won. Enterprise, one of the ship girls, approached him, expressing relief that it was finally over and suggesting they return to base. However, in a desperate attempt to defeat Izuku, Purifier, a weakened foe, opened a portal beneath him. Despite the cries of warning from Enterprise and the other ship girls, Izuku succumbed to exhaustion and fell through the portal just as it closed behind him. On the other side of the portal, an observer noticed the strange phenomenon in the sky and saw someone falling through it. The man, who would soon be recognized as All Might, quickly transformed and leaped into action, catching Izuku with ease. The crowd cheered as he landed and examined the boy he had saved. Izuku appeared to be around 12 or 13 years old, adorned in unusual floating armor resembling an aircraft carrier's deck, and dressed in attire reminiscent of a naval admiral. All Might noted the numerous grazes on the boy's body, suggesting he had experienced many close calls. A reporter approached All Might, eager to ask questions about the portal and the boy. All Might admitted he had no answers but decided to take Izuku to UA for treatment and further investigation. After a brief time skip, Izuku awoke in a strange place, noticing an unfamiliar ceiling. He quickly sat up, realizing he still had his ship equipment and sword beside him. A voice from his right startled him, and he turned to see Recovery Girl, who informed him that she would fetch Nizu, Aizawa, and All Might. A few minutes later, the door opened to reveal a tired-looking man, a muscular figure, and what appeared to be a small white bear. Izuku recognized All Might, guessed the tired man was Aizawa, and assumed the bear was Nizu. Nizu introduced himself as the principal of UA and inquired about Izuku's identity. Izuku stood up and saluted, declaring himself the USS Nimitz, the lead ship of the Nimitz class of aircraft carriers and a member of Azur. Nizu appeared puzzled by this introduction and asked for clarification on what Azur was. Izuku explained that Azur was a defensive alliance against the Sirens, formed by 4 major factions: the Eagle Union, Royal Navy, Iron Blood, and Sakura Empire. Before Nizu could ask more questions, Izuku inquired about his current location. Nizu informed him that he was at the No. 1 Hero School in Mizudafu, Japan. Now, what are sirens? Izuku and Nizu proceeded to explain their worlds while Aizawa and All Might watched. Together, Izuku and Nizu created an identity in the My Hero Academia world, where he was given the name Izuku Midoriya. Once they finished, All Might spoke up, asking why Izuku had fallen through the portal into their world. Izuku explained that he had led Azur into the final battle against the Sirens, and after they had won, a siren had opened a portal beneath him to get rid of him. Nizu then asked Izuku how he would like to live on UA campus until he turned 15, at which point they would enroll him in the hero course. Izuku agreed but requested that they build a port on site, as he wanted to take the entrance exam for UA. Nizu understood the need for the entrance exam but was curious about the port. Izuku explained that he could disengage his ship, which made sense to Nizu. 2 years later, it was time for the UA entrance exam. Izuku stood in front of UA, 30 minutes before the exam began, watching as others arrived. He noticed a brown-haired girl about to trip and quickly ran over to catch her before she fell. She looked shocked that someone had helped her. Izuku introduced himself as Izuku, Nimitz, Midoriya and mentioned that they needed to get to the exam hall. He waved goodbye to the girl he had just helped, who was receiving jealous glares from other girls wishing they had been in her place. Time passed, and Izuku aced the written exam, taking first place thanks to private tutoring from Principal Nizu. He was now in the auditorium for the briefing of the practical exam. Present Mike energized the crowd, and Izuku joined in, excited. As Present Mike explained the point system for the robots, Izuku quietly muttered strategies to himself. Others around him found his mutterings interesting until someone interrupted, pointing out a discrepancy in the number of robots and accusing Izuku of being a distraction. Izuku calmly addressed the accuser, explaining that if the person next to him could barely hear him, then someone 6 rows away shouldn't be able to either. He clarified that Present Mike had mentioned 3 main robots, meaning the 4th was unimportant. The accuser sat back down embarrassed. Present Mike confirmed that the 4th robot was a 0-pointer and sent everyone off to their designated cities. Izuku, wearing his repaired Aza Lane suit, waited for the gate to open when the boy from the auditorium approached him to apologize for earlier. Izuku introduced himself again, and the boy introduced himself as Tenya Ida. Curious about the Nimitz in Izuku's name, Ida asked for clarification. Izuku promised he would find out if they were accepted into the same class and advised Ida to run straight in when the gates opened. As the gates began to open, Izuku suddenly shouted, surprising everyone. He called for his ship to engage, glowing blue as he did so. When the glow faded, he drew his sword and swiftly took down 2 1-pointers and 1 3-pointer. Izuku then commanded the launch of 10 Fa-18 Hornets and 5 A-10 Thunderbolts, which began attacking the robots while he continued to use his sword and rigging weapons to destroy more enemies. In the observation room, everyone was shocked by Izuku's combat effectiveness as he reached 60 points within the first minute of the exam. Nizu noted that Izuku was doing what he did best, while Aizawa and All Might debated over who had adopted him. Nizu chuckled to himself, revealing that he had already signed the adoption papers. Midnight suggested it was time for the 0-pointer, and Nizu pressed the button with a laugh. Back with Izuku, he had just recalled all his aircraft, none of which were destroyed, when he heard screams. He jumped down from the building he was on and spotted the 0-pointer, preparing for another attack. As he launched more aircraft, he heard a cry for help and saw Uraraka trapped in the rubble. He quickly ran over, using his sword to cut away the debris and free her. He called out to Ida, instructing him to help Uraraka escape. With Uraraka safe, Izuku turned back to the 0-pointer, hoping his plan would work. Red veins appeared on his body before disappearing, and green lightning emitted from him as he prepared for the next phase of the battle. He proceeded to call for his aircraft and jumped at the 0-pointer, striking it in the face before landing on an aircraft and riding it to the ground. Izuku looked at his handiwork and thought to himself that he had done a good job. Izuku walked back to his modest home by the port, where his USS Nimitz was usually docked. He said, "Disengage," and began to glow, causing his aircraft carrier to appear in the port, as he had forgotten to disengage it. Upon entering his house, he was greeted by a smiling Nizu, which made Izuku happy. Nizu informed him that he could now call him Dad, as he had signed the adoption papers. Izuku replied that he knew the papers had not gone through yet. Nizu acknowledged this but shifted the conversation to Izuku's results. He revealed that Izuku had placed first in the written exam, earning 200 villain points for taking out robots and another 60 hero points for saving a young lady. Overall, he had a total of 260 points, 2 points higher than All Might's score, making him the new record holder. Izuku was shocked, as he had thought he only had 150 villain points. On the first day at UA, Izuku walked the halls 20 minutes before class started, searching for class 1A. He quickly found it, but when he opened the door, he saw Ida arguing with a blonde-haired boy. Ida insisted that the boy should take his feet off the desk, as it was disrespectful to those who made it and the students that came before them. The boy, showing a lack of concern, identified himself as Katsuki Bakugo and dismissed Ida's comments. Izuku sighed and walked to his seat, but Bakugo called out to him, demanding respect as he considered himself superior. Having had enough of Bakugo's attitude after only a few minutes, Izuku chose to ignore him. After about 10 minutes, everyone had arrived, and the classroom was generally chaotic, except for Izuku and a black-haired girl. Izuku suggested that they might want to be quiet since the teacher was present. Everyone looked confused until a giant yellow caterpillar crawled out from behind the podium. Aizawa acknowledged Izuku as a problem child and instructed everyone to take their sports clothes and head out to the field. Izuku stood up, took a set of clothes, and walked off without a word. In the changing room, while everyone was getting ready, Mineta was snooping around until he found a peephole into the girls' changing room. He excitedly called Denki over, but just as he did, Izuku, surrounded by green lightning, kicked him away from the peephole. He warned Mineta to refrain from such behavior at school, or he would face serious consequences. Ida reminded Izuku that it wasn't good to harm classmates, but Izuku countered that allowing such behavior would harm the school's reputation. With that, he left for the field. Aizawa asked where Mineta was, and Izuku admitted to kicking him into a wall for trying to peek. Aizawa then began the test. Bakugo was called first, and after throwing a ball with his quirk, he achieved a distance of 705.2 meters. As the test continued, Izuku performed exceptionally well in each one, showcasing his abilities with varying percentages of 1 for all. He completed the 50-meter dash in 1.01 seconds, achieved a grip strength of 200 kilograms, and cleared the sandbox in the standing long jump using 10% of 1 for all. He also managed 100 side steps in 1 minute and ran for 30 minutes in the distance running test. When it came to the ball throw, he decided to use 100% of 1 for all, launching the ball an astonishing 1,500 meters, which left his classmates in shock. Aizawa announced the scores, placing Izuku at the top, followed by Momo Yaoyorozu, Shoto Todoroki, and Katsuki Bakugo. He then expelled Mineta, who protested desperately, but Izuku intervened, drawing his sword and warning Mineta to leave before things got messy. Mineta quickly ran out of UA, and Izuku sighed, disengaging his USS Nimitz. In the classroom, Aizawa instructed everyone to introduce themselves, asking Izuku to give a full introduction. Izuku stood up and walked to the front, introducing himself as Izuku Nimitz Midoriya, explaining that his quirk was energy stockpile, and sharing his likes and dislikes. When Ida questioned how he could have floating armor and materialize aircraft, Izuku explained that it was due to his wisdom cube linked to the USS Nimitz. The aircraft were automated, with no people on board. As the school day came to an end, the bell rang, and students began to walk home. Izuku was about to head to his residence on school grounds when he heard someone calling his name. Uraraka approached him and asked why he was going into the school. Izuku explained that his house was on the school site. She understood and wished him a good day, and he turned to head home. The next day was filled with standard math and English classes until lunch. When the bell rang, Izuku walked to the cafeteria with Uraraka, Ida, and Momo, chatting about their experiences at school so far. Izuku remarked that school was absolutely boring, to which Ida responded that he shouldn't speak about school that way. Izuku noted that he had a similar IQ to Principal Nizu, which might explain his feelings. Momo pointed out his impressive entrance exam score of 97%, and Izuku admitted that the 3% he lost was due to a question that was more opinion than fact. Uraraka chimed in, recalling the question about quirks damaging the user's body. Izuku shared that his own quirk used to cause him pain when he overexerted himself. Momo realized that was why he had answered incorrectly. Upon arriving at the cafeteria, Izuku ordered his favorite dish, katsudon. They found an empty table and began to eat while continuing their conversation. Suddenly, someone hit Izuku on the head. A student from Class 1B, Nito Monoma, taunted them, claiming that Class 1B would prove they were better. Izuku stood up, clearly displeased, and introduced himself, asking for Monoma's name. Monoma introduced himself, but was quickly interrupted by an orange-haired girl who apologized for his behavior, explaining that he was upset about not getting into Class 1A. Izuku shrugged it off, noting that Monoma was likely just a few points behind the lowest member of Class 1A, which made the girls blush at his confidence. Just as they resumed eating, an alarm blared, causing panic among the students. Izuku inquired about the commotion, and a random student informed him that it was a Level 3 alarm, indicating someone had broken onto campus. Another student mentioned that this had never happened before. Izuku rushed to the window and saw that it was only the media. He asked Momo for a megaphone and urged everyone to calm down, explaining that it was just the media outside. As the students looked out, Izuku noticed an abnormal ping on the radar. He approached the Big Three, whom he had known from living on campus for 2 years, and asked for their help. Mirio agreed to assist, and Izuku informed them that someone had been snooping around during the alarm. The Big Three took him seriously, knowing his capabilities from previous sparring sessions. They quickly made their way to the faculty room, where they found a hooded figure who clearly did not belong there. Mirio shouted for the figure to stop, but the man simply smirked and vanished into a purple mist. Izuku insisted they inform Principal Nizu about the incident. Mirio agreed, and they went to report to Nizu, who mentioned that the only major event coming up was the USJ trip for Class 1A. Nizu decided to recruit extra heroes for the trip and granted Izuku full permission to use his quirk and riggings. Time passed, and Izuku sat in class, waiting for the teacher to arrive. Kirishima wondered who their teacher for Hero 101 would be, while Izuku confidently stated it would be All Might. Denki doubted that All Might would be teaching first years. Suddenly, loud stomping echoed down the hall, and the door burst open as All Might entered dramatically, only to trip and fall. Izuku, having improved his ability to engage and disengage his rigging silently, reminded All Might to be mindful of his volume, as some people had sensitive hearing. Jiro blushed, realizing she had inadvertently stunned All Might. All Might apologized, referring to Izuku as his son, which surprised everyone. Aizawa interjected, claiming Izuku was his son. Izuku clarified that he was technically Nizu's son, explaining that Nizu had slipped a document into a stack of papers he signed, which was currently being processed by the government. All Might then announced that they had a new classmate since Aizawa had expelled Mineta. A girl with rabbit ears entered the classroom, looking pleased with the variety of quirks present. All Might explained that they would be doing battle training and pressed a button, revealing 21 cases from the wall. He took the case that had belonged to Mineta and instructed everyone to meet at Fake City Gamma. When they arrived, everyone noted each other's costumes and assessed their strengths and weaknesses. Izuku's hero suit featured a moth guard, hood, and an iron blood hat, along with his riggings. All Might praised the young heroes and declared that it was time to begin. All teams are the same, but replace Mineta with Mirko and have Momo's team win if they didn't. Izuku and Uraraka are outside discussing a plan where Izuku quickly takes down Bakugo, and then they both go after Ida. All Might announces the start of the match, and Izuku and Uraraka quickly move to the second floor. They are approached by Bakugo, who plans to eliminate them swiftly. However, Izuku powers up to 50% one for all, swiftly incapacitating Bakugo and tying him up. All Might declares that Bakugo has been captured. Izuku and Uraraka then move to the 5th floor, where they find Ida monologuing. Izuku fires a stunning shot from one of his CIWS while Uraraka heads to the bomb and touches it. All Might announces that the heroes win and asks who the MVP of the match is. Momo states that it is Midoriya, as he came up with a plan that utilized both their current skills and abilities, executing it perfectly. All Might acknowledges Momo's answer and states that justice waits for no one. With that, Izuku's second day comes to an end. It is now the day of the USJ, and Izuku and the other heroes have gathered for a meeting. Endeavor questions Aizawa about the purpose of the meeting and the presence of a first-year student. Izuku looks at Endeavor knowingly, startling him. He explains that he is there because he was the one who noticed the intruder. Annoyed by Izuku's comment, Endeavor remains silent as Nizu enters the meeting room with some files. Nizu explains that they had someone steal files, specifically the teacher attendance for the trip. He informs them that the heroes are extra reinforcements for the trip and that Endeavor's son, Shoto, is also on this trip. Endeavor appears satisfied with the plan. Nizu instructs Izuku to get suited up for the mission, and Izuku promptly leaves to change into his hero suit. Outside, Izuku waits with the rest of his class as the teachers and recruited heroes arrive with the buses, and they head to the USJ. On the way, Tsuyu makes an interesting observation about the similarities between Izuku's and All Might's quirks. Izuku explains that while both are strength enhancers, his quirk stockpiles energy to enhance his strength, and he hopes to learn other ways to release that energy in the future. Aizawa announces their arrival, instructing the students to go inside and meet. Everyone complies, and Izuku engages his riggings as they head inside with the other heroes and classmates. 13 welcomes them to the unforeseen simulation joint and begins to explain quirk safety when Kirishima interrupts, excited about the fake villains. As everyone turns to the plaza, Izuku freezes in fear upon seeing a villain carrying a Siren's World portal device. He begins to hyperventilate, which does not go unnoticed by Aizawa. Izuku explains the gravity of the situation, warning that they are about to face significant problems if the villain activates the device. Just as he finishes speaking, the villain starts laughing maniacally and activates the device, holding it close to his chest. Izuku, in a panic, realizes that the portal will open in 30 seconds. Suddenly, he gains access to Azur Lane communications and focuses on the now open portal, which reveals a wave of low-ranked sirens, mid-ranked sirens, and one high-ranked siren coming through. He requests permission from Aizawa to eliminate the villain and destroy the device, which Aizawa grants after a moment of thought. Everyone is shocked by Aizawa's response as Izuku aims a 25mm autocannon at the villain and fires, destroying the device. The portal connecting the Siren's World to their own is severed, but not before a smaller portal opens, allowing 5 individuals to fall out. Recognizing them, Izuku calls out to Enterprise, Belfast, Akagi, Kaga, and Bismarck. They rush to him, but he urges them to focus on the sirens. The 5 engage their ships and begin attacking the sirens, who are now trapped in their world, quickly overwhelming them. Enterprise hugs Izuku tightly, expressing her happiness to see him again. Izuku responds, introducing himself as Izuku, Nimitz, Midoriya. Akagi insists on calling him Nimitz, which he agrees to, but suggests they should address the questions from his classmates and the heroes. As they make their way back to the main group, they are bombarded with questions. Izuku explains that he killed the villain to close the portal and that the creatures they faced are called sirens from another world. He clarifies that the 5 newcomers do not have quirks but possess wisdom cubes. Bismarck asks about quirks, and Izuku explains that they are powers people are born with, ranging from mutations to super strength. Kaga inquires if there are people without powers, and Izuku confirms that quirkless individuals make up 20% of the population. Momo introduces the newcomers, and everyone is astonished to learn that UA has a fleet consisting of 4 carriers, 1 cruiser, and 1 battleship. Nizu instructs Cementos to expand the port for the new ships and Izuku's house to accommodate 5 more people, asking the 6 to follow him for further discussion. The 6 members of Azur Lane wait in Nizu's office for him to return. The door opened, revealing Nizu carrying a stack of papers and All Might with 5 stacks. Nizu expressed his gratitude to All Might for his assistance, and All Might replied that it was no problem. After All Might left, closing the door behind him, Nizu turned to the 5 girls and handed each of them a stack of papers along with a pen. He explained that the paperwork was to create official identities for them in this world, with the top part for their identities and the bottom part to enroll them in Class 1A alongside Izuku. The 5 girls began going through the papers one by one, signing where necessary while Nizu and Izuku chatted. It took them about 20 minutes to finish signing everything. Once they were done, Izuku announced that they were all now his classmates. Just then, there was a knock at the door, and Cementos entered, informing them that the port and Izuku's house had been expanded as requested. Nizu thanked Cementos and mentioned that his pay would be increased for 2 months. Cementos quickly left, and Nizu welcomed the girls to UA. A time skip occurred, showing Chibi Eri sitting on Chibi Izuku's lap while being read to. It was the Monday after the USJ trip, and Izuku was in class waiting for Aizawa to arrive and start the lesson. Aizawa entered and announced that there were 3 announcements for the day, starting with the introduction of 5 new students. The class began to whisper about who the new students might be, prompting Aizawa to silence them. He invited the new students in, and Enterprise, Belfast, Akagi, Kaga, and Bismarck entered the classroom in UA uniforms, introducing themselves. Aizawa instructed everyone to sit down and informed them that they needed to decide on a class president. He told them to wake him up when they were finished. Izuku suggested taking a vote to expedite the process, and Uraraka pointed out that everyone might just vote for themselves. Izuku explained that the students with the most votes would be the best suited, as they had made the biggest impact. The voting took place, resulting in Izuku receiving 10 votes, Belfast 5, Momo 4, Ida 3, and Bakugu 1. Bakugu expressed his frustration over who voted for Izuku, and several students raised their hands in support of him, citing his leadership in battle. Ultimately, Izuku and Belfast were chosen as class president and vice president. When Aizawa asked who they had picked, Izuku proudly stated their names. Aizawa smirked, complimenting their choice and informing them that the UA Sports Festival would take place in 2 weeks, encouraging them to prepare for training. Akagi invited Izuku to train with her, Kaga, and Enterprise. Izuku reminded them that internships would follow the sports festival, and agencies impressed by their performances would extend offers. Kaga noted that agencies would gain more manpower while they would gain experience in hero work. Izuku clarified that if they did not receive any offers, UA would assign them to a teacher for hero work, although that rarely happened. Enterprise asked if they had to go with the agency if they received only one offer, and Izuku explained that it was not mandatory, but going with a teacher would likely involve studying unless it was Aizawa, who would keep them on patrol at night. The 4 carriers trained diligently for the next 2 weeks. Izuku managed to keep his aircraft small while maintaining its power, and the other 3 learned to engage their rigging silently. As the sports festival approached, Izuku asked how they felt about the upcoming event. Akagi expressed confidence in their abilities, while Kaga believed one of them could win. Enterprise remarked that Izuku would likely excel due to his quirk and riggings. When asked how he obtained his quirk, Izuku explained that it was given to him by All Might, called 1-4. All, which was passed down through generations, growing stronger each time. He mentioned that he had initially described it as an energy stockpile because he would eventually unlock the quirks of past holders. The girls were astonished by the revelation of Izuku's quirk. Bismarck speculated that such a powerful ability must have a catch, and Izuku confirmed that 1-for-All had an enemy named All-for-One, who was thought to be dead, but the truth remained unknown. He urged them not to share this information with anyone. Belfast reassured him that they trusted him and would keep his secret. Izuku thanked them for their support. On the day of the sports festival, Class 1A was already in their gym clothes, waiting for Aizawa to lead them to the arena. Aizawa encouraged his students to win for him, and they responded enthusiastically. He guided them to the stadium entrance and instructed them to wait until their names were called. Present Mike announced the start of the festival, introducing the R-rated hero, Midnight, who presented all the classes and highlighted Class 1A's experience with a villain attack. Midnight then called upon Izuku to come up and give a speech. He took the stage and spoke about the true essence of being a hero, emphasizing that it was not solely about the strength of one's quirk. He acknowledged that doctors, police officers, and firefighters were heroes in their own right, and anyone who saved a life could be considered a hero, regardless of their quirk. He encouraged quirkless individuals and those with weaker or misunderstood quirks to believe in their potential to be heroes as well. As Izuku finished his speech, a figure named Stain watched from a building, noting that some still understood what it meant to be a true hero. Back on stage, Midnight announced the first half of the festival, an obstacle course, with the first 16 students to complete it moving on to the second half. All the students lined up at the starting line, and the Aza Lane group engaged their riggings. Midnight signaled the start, and Izuku, along with the Aza Lane group, quickly maneuvered out of the entrance before Todoroki could freeze it. Izuku launched a full-sized F.A. 18 and jumped on, allowing Bismarck to join him as well. Enterprise, Akagi and Kaga followed suit, with Enterprise letting Belfast jump on, and they swiftly flew toward the exit. Izuku finished first, followed by Bismarck in second, Akagi in third, Kaga in fourth, Enterprise in fifth, and Belfast in sixth, with the rest of the positions filled, except for Shinso. Shinso entered the arena, and after a brief time skip, the one-on-one matches began. Midnight announced that Izuku Midoriya and Shinso Hitoshi were up next. As Izuku arrived, he noticed that Shinso looked almost as exhausted as Aizawa. Midnight asked if both were ready, and they nodded in response. With a crack of her whip, the match began. Shinso remarked on the advantages of being born with two quirks, but Izuku quickly pointed out that Shinso's quirk, Brainwash, was more akin to mind control. He suggested that Shinso should focus on training his body rather than relying solely on his quirk, and even recommended that he learn from Aizawa about using his scarf effectively. Shinso, feeling overwhelmed, decided to forfeit the match. Midnight declared Izuku the winner, and they both left the stage. The sports festival continued, with Izuku assisting Todoroki, leading to his victory instead of a loss. Midnight then called for Katsuki Bakugu and Izuku Midoriya to take the stage. Izuku could sense Bakugu's intense anger directed at him. Bakugu vowed to get revenge for their previous training match, but Izuku confidently stated that it was unlikely Bakugu would win, encouraging him to give it his best shot. As he engaged his riggings and drew his sword, Midnight confirmed that both opponents were ready for the finale. With another crack of her whip, Bakugu charged at Izuku, who fired a stunning shot from his riggings, hitting Bakugu in the chest. Izuku then picked Bakugu up and tossed him out of the ring. Midnight announced that Bakugu was out of bounds, declaring Izuku the winner. Later, at the podium, Midnight introduced All Might, who landed dramatically in the stadium. He presented the awards, congratulating Tokoyami for third place, Bakugu for second, and Izuku for first, expressing his pride in him. Izuku thanked All Might, and with that, the festival concluded, leading into the next day's internship preparations. On Thursday, after the UA Sports Festival, Aizawa informed the students that they would be choosing which pro-hero agencies to intern with. Izuku mentioned that Mirio would introduce him to Sir Night Eye, prompting Denki to comment on how lucky Izuku was to know one of the big three. Izuku corrected him, stating that he knew all three, leaving the class in shock. Aizawa then revealed the number of internship requests each student received. Izuku had an impressive 6,548 requests, while Bakugu had 589, and the others had varying numbers. Shuji noted that Izuku had by far the most requests. Izuku decided he no longer needed Mirio's introduction since Night Eye had put in a request for him. He asked Akagi and Kaga about their choices, and they mentioned considering the Wild Pussycats, who were known for their rescue work. Belfast also shared that Night Eye had requested her, so she would join Izuku. Aizawa reminded them that they would also be deciding on their hero names. Midnight burst into the room, eager to hear their choices. When it was Izuku's turn, he announced his hero name as the heroic carrier, Nimitz. Midnight praised the name, and Akagi and Kaga presented themselves as the Kitsune duo. Belfast introduced herself as the Royal Defender, Belfast, while Bismarck declared herself the Iron Devil, Bismarck. Finally, Enterprise presented her name as the Grey Ghost, Enterprise. Midnight found the names interesting and quickly left the classroom. Izuku remarked on the presentation, and the group prepared to turn in their internship forms. After a time skip, Izuku and Belfast were on their way to Night Eye's agency with Mirio. Mirio explained that there was usually a test for interns, but since Night Eye had requested them, they would likely be fine. Upon arriving at Night Eye's office, they found Bubble Girl being playfully tickled by a machine. Izuku announced their arrival, and Night Eye instructed Bubble Girl to leave the room. He then asked Mirio and Belfast to step out as well. Izuku insisted that Belfast could stay, as she was aware of the topic at hand. Night Eye confirmed that he wanted to discuss One for All, asking how much Izuku could use. Izuku explained that he could utilize 100% of the power, and when his riggings were engaged, it increased to 120%. Night Eye acknowledged All Might's choice in selecting Izuku as his successor and requested Mirio to return. Once Mirio was back, Night Eye briefed them about a Yakuza group that had 3 young girls captive, showing them pictures of the victims. Izuku felt a surge of protectiveness and anger, recognizing the girls as Unicorn and Z46. He stood up, declaring that he was going on patrol, and Night Eye instructed Mirio and Belfast to accompany him, emphasizing the need to protect the girls. While on patrol, a young girl bumped into Izuku's leg. He checked to ensure she was all right, and as he did, Unicorn and Z46 emerged from an alley, their eyes widening upon seeing him. He quickly asked Z46 if anyone was chasing them, to which she replied that a man with a bird mask had been pursuing them. Izuku instructed Unicorn to take Eri to Belfast for safety while he engaged his riggings and prepared for confrontation. Overhaul appeared, attempting to question Izuku, but he was met with a quirk interruption round followed by a stunning shot. Izuku warned Overhaul that he should not have targeted the girls. The police soon arrived to arrest Overhaul as Izuku approached Unicorn and Z46, praising them for their bravery in protecting Eri. Eri, wanting attention too, received a gentle pat on the head from Izuku, who hoped to bring her some comfort. Izuku, Belfast, and Mirio returned to Night Eye's agency to report that Izuku had apprehended Overhaul and saved Eri, Unicorn, and Z46. Upon arriving at Night Eye's office, he sought clarification on their recent patrol. He asked if it was true that they had defeated a Yakuza boss and rescued 3 girls in just 30 minutes. Izuku, with Unicorn and Z46 by his side and Eri sleeping on his lap, confirmed the report. Night Eye then outlined their next mission, to locate and apprehend the hero killer, Stain. He inquired if they could complete this task in one day. Izuku asked where Stain had last been sighted, and Night Eye informed him it was in Hosu, where Stain had only killed 1 hero and typically killed 2 before moving on. Determined, Izuku declared he would head to Hosu immediately and instructed Unicorn and Z46 to stay behind and watch over Eri. Mirio and Belfast would accompany him. As they arrived in Hosu, Izuku instructed Belfast to engage her ship and activate the sonar systems to aid in locating Stain. He advised her to use a stunning shot and a quirk interruption round if they found him, as they were unaware of his abilities. They split up, with Mirio and Belfast working together while Izuku went alone. An hour later, Izuku spotted Stain and leaped down, drawing his sword to intercept him before he could harm Ida. Stain, surprised by the interruption, challenged Izuku, offering to spare his life if he left. Izuku countered that leaving would contradict his role as a true hero. Ida insisted that this was his fight and that he sought revenge for his brother. Izuku questioned whether Ida's brother would truly want him to pursue this path. Stain, intrigued by Izuku's attempt to guide Ida, prepared for battle. The clash between Izuku and Stain intensified, with both exchanging minor slashes. Stain inquired about Izuku's sword training, to which Izuku replied he had practiced for 5 years, starting at the age of 10. Stain, impressed, acknowledged Izuku as both a true hero and an exceptional swordsman. In a decisive moment, Izuku struck Stain's sword with such force that it shattered. He swiftly turned his blade and knocked Stain out with the blunt side before restraining him. He then contacted Belfast to inform her that he had Stain secured. Belfast acknowledged his message, and soon the police arrived to take Stain into custody. One officer mistakenly attempted to arrest Izuku for illegal quirk usage, but Stain intervened, clarifying that Izuku had only used a sword to defeat him. The officer, taken aback, quickly apologized. Izuku explained that he had received orders from Night Eye to find and apprehend Stain. The officers expressed their surprise at his accomplishments, noting that taking down 2 high-ranking criminals in one day was a feat worthy of All Might. With the mission completed, Izuku, Belfast, and the girls returned to Night Eye's agency. Night Eye remarked on how quickly Izuku accomplished his tasks. Izuku, with Unicorn, Z46, and Eri all vying for his attention, acknowledged the truth of Night Eye's statement. Night Eye presented Izuku with adoption papers for Unicorn, Z46, and Eri, who looked at him with hopeful eyes. Realizing he had no choice, Izuku signed the papers. The moment he finished, the 3 girls jumped into his arms, thanking him affectionately. Night Eye smiled at the new family dynamic but wondered about the intentions of Nizu, who had orchestrated this situation. He informed Izuku, Belfast, and the girls that they could return to UA, as there was no further work for them at the agency. Grateful, Izuku left with the girls and Belfast to head back to UA. Upon reaching the gate, they called Nizu, who informed them that everything was already set up in the system. Life at UA returned to normal for a few days until Belfast sought a private conversation with Izuku. She suggested that the girls should have a mother figure in their lives. Realizing her intentions, Izuku embraced her and agreed to go out with her. Overjoyed, Belfast hugged him tightly, and they decided to share the news with the girls. Izuku asked Unicorn, Z46, and Eri how they would feel about having a mother. Eri's eyes sparkled with excitement, while Unicorn and Z46 inquired if he was dating someone. At that moment, Belfast entered, holding Izuku's hand. The girls joyfully exclaimed, "Mama," and the five of them shared a warm hug, all smiling together. Even Nizu, watching through security cameras, felt a pang of jealousy for not being included in the embrace. Later, while Izuku and Belfast were entertaining Z46, Unicorn, and Eri, Bismarck returned. Z46 was surprised to see her and exclaimed that Lady Bismarck was there too. Bismarck, taken aback, questioned Z46 about how she ended up there, not expecting her to have crossed through the portal. Z46 explained that she had arrived at a different location. Bismarck continued to ask questions as they made their way to the living room. When she saw Belfast resting her head on Izuku's arm, jealousy surged within her, but she concealed it. Bismarck asked when Nimitz had returned home. Izuku explained that they had completed everything Sir Night Eye required from them on the first day. Eri, curious, inquired why everyone called Izuku Nimitz when he had introduced himself as Izuku. Bismarck was taken aback by Eri's use of Papa. Izuku clarified that everyone referred to him as Nimitz because that was his name before he became Izuku, and he had adopted Eri, Z46, and Unicorn before leaving Sir Night Eye's agency. Bismarck then asked if the children had a mother figure, to which Belfast replied affirmatively. Bismarck's sadness at this response did not go unnoticed by Belfast, who then requested Bismarck to follow her. As they left, Unicorn asked why Mama and Lady Bismarck had gone to discuss something. Izuku suggested it was likely something they wanted to keep secret. The same scenario unfolded when Akagi, Kaga, and Enterprise returned. Nizu had also arranged for Cementos to expand the port and house. The children were asleep, while the others gathered in Izuku's room to talk. Izuku addressed everyone, confirming that they liked him and that Belfast had given her approval. Belfast affirmed her agreement. Izuku stepped outside briefly to gather the necessary items for the 5 oaths. Upon returning, he prepared the oaths and proceeded with the ceremony. He asked if everyone felt a power boost from the oaths, to which the 5 responded affirmatively, confirming that it had worked well. Fast forward to the first day back, Izuku, along with his new wives and daughters, waited in class for their fellow classmates to arrive. Momo was the first to enter and looked at the children in confusion. Izuku, with all 3 kids on his lap, explained that he should have his daughters with him. Momo, shocked, asked who their mother was, and Izuku's wives revealed that they were the children's mothers. Momo realized that Izuku was now married with 3 kids and asked if they were adopted. Izuku confirmed that he had adopted all 3 after saving them from overhaul, which made sense to Momo. Similar conversations occurred each time someone entered the room. Aizawa then instructed the students to put on their hero costumes and head to Fake City Alpha, except for Izuku, who could follow him with his kids. He also reprimanded Ida for recklessly pursuing Stain, causing Ida to look down in shame. In Fake City Alpha, Izuku stood with Eri in his arms, while Z46 and Unicorn rested on his riggings. As everyone arrived, they noticed how adorable the children looked while sleeping, even Bakugu. Aizawa announced that they would have 2 exams, a written and a physical exam. Izuku was exempt from both since he had completed the written exam early during his internship. When Ida questioned why Aizawa called Izuku by his first name, Izuku explained that there were 9 Midoriyas present at that moment. The others, except for Momo, were confused, as they had not inquired about the mother figures like she had. Denki pointed out that there were only 4 Izukus, himself and his daughters. Izuku's wives chimed in, reminding everyone that they were included as well. Realization dawned on the group. Mina expressed her disappointment at not being invited to Izuku's wedding, to which he clarified that the actual ceremony had not yet occurred, but they had performed the oath 2 days prior, granting them a power boost and a connection to sense each other's presence. He described their current status as engaged. Koyoka asked if it was related to the Wisdom Cube, and Izuku confirmed it was. Mina turned to Izuku's wives, offering to help plan the wedding. Akagi mentioned that it could happen in their 3rd year, but not at the moment, which Mina accepted. Aizawa continued, explaining that Izuku's achievements made it unnecessary for him to take the exam. Bakugo, curious, asked what Izuku had done. Izuku recounted how he had taken down a powerful Yakuza boss, saving his now daughters, and defeated the hero killer Stain with just his sword, earning Stain's respect in a single day. Bakugo fell silent, a sense of respect growing for Izuku, as he realized that saving 3 children deserved admiration. Aizawa then announced that for the physical exam, the students would be fighting the teachers in teams of 2. The results of the teams were as follows. Shoto and Momo passed, Bakugo and Bismarck passed due to Bismarck's support, Denki failed while Mina passed thanks to Izuku's strategies, Aoyama and Uraraka passed, Koda and Koyoka passed, Tokoyami and Tsu passed, Siro and Mirko passed, Shuji and Toru passed, Sato and Kirishima failed, being just a second too late, Ida and Ojiro passed, Akagi and Kaga passed, Belfast and Enterprise passed. Aizawa announced that Niza decided to be lenient on 2 of the failed students, allowing Kirishima and Sato to pass, but they needed to improve. Both students agreed. Aizawa then informed Denki that he was the only one who failed and that he would still attend summer camp but would have to take extra classes with him and Vlad King. The day before classes 1A and 1B were set to leave for summer camp, everyone was busy packing. Izuku packed clothes for Eri, Unicorn, and Z46, which Nizu had secured from the government, while Belfast packed clothes for herself and Izuku. Fast forward to departure, all of classes 1A and 1B waited in the school parking lot for the buses. Eri and Z46 were sleeping on Izuku's riggings, while Unicorn rested in his arms. The girls watched the scene with delight, but one boy attempted to wake the kids on purpose. However, as soon as he opened his mouth, he felt an overwhelming sense of bloodlust emanating from Izuku and the girls. Izuku whispered a warning, threatening dire consequences if anyone disturbed his daughters. The boy quickly closed his mouth and walked away in silence. Aizawa then instructed everyone to board the bus. Bismarck took Z46 in her arms while Belfast carried Eri. Aizawa designated the Midoriya family section at the back of the bus and advised the rest to sit anywhere else, just not to wake him, as the trip would take about an hour. Izuku quietly asked Aizawa if he needed to participate in the beginning since he had children to care for. Aizawa agreed to inform the others that Izuku would not be taking part, but only he would be exempt. Izuku thanked him. As they arrived at the hill road, Aizawa instructed everyone to get off the bus. Izuku stepped out, still carrying a sleeping Unicorn, and engaged his riggings, signaling for his wives to place the children on his riggings as Aizawa called him over. Izuku complied with the instructions given to him. Aizawa introduced the group that would assist in training, the Wild Wild Pussycats. Mandalay and Pixie Bob appeared, spotting Akagi and Kaga. The two expressed their excitement at seeing them. Pixie Bob whispered to Kaga, noting that the green-haired boy had riggings like them. Kaga responded that there were currently 8 people present with riggings, including him. Mandalay reassured everyone that they were there to help improve their quirks and encouraged them to use them freely since they were on private property. Izuku inquired about when they would be thrown over, prompting Class 1A to attempt to return to the bus. Pixie Bob announced that it was time, and Izuku's wives jumped off the edge, while the others were playfully tossed over by mud. Mandalay asked if Izuku would join them, but he declined, expressing concern that Eri would be frightened if she saw her new papa running away. The remaining members boarded the bus and headed to camp, with Mandalay carrying Z46 and Pixie Bob taking Eri. During the journey, Pixie Bob asked Izuku about the other individuals with riggings. Izuku listed Z46, Unicorn, Belfast, Enterprise, and Bismarck. Mandalay was surprised and inquired about the source of their riggings. Izuku explained that they were called wisdom cubes. Upon arriving at camp, Izuku noticed a boy whose eyes widened upon seeing him. He approached the boy and introduced himself. The boy, Kota, stuttered as he shared his name, revealing that he was grateful to Izuku for saving his parents from a villain. Kota currently lived with Mandalay while his family was on a mission abroad. Izuku introduced himself as Izuku Nimitz Midoriya, the heroic carrier Nimitz. Kota's eyes sparkled at the name, and he hugged Izuku's leg, thanking him for saving his parents. Izuku recalled that Kota's parents were the water hose duo and mentioned that he had intervened when other heroes were not acting. Kota expressed a desire to learn swordsmanship, inspired by Izuku's fight with Stain. Izuku agreed to teach him but suggested they wait until the next day, as he needed to prepare food for his class. Shortly after, Izuku's wives emerged from the forest, bringing the class with them except for Mirko, who remained standing. Izuku welcomed them, announcing that the food was ready. The class eagerly sat down to eat, and Mina asked who had made the meal. Izuku proudly claimed responsibility, earning Bakugu's respect. Z46 asked if Izuku would teach Kota how to use a sword, to which Izuku confirmed. He also offered to help Z46 improve her skills, and she nodded in agreement. Koyoka asked who Kota was, and Izuku explained that he was the son of the water hose duo and that Mandalay was his aunt. He then advised everyone to get some rest for the large training day ahead. The next morning, improvements made by the class were summarized. Bakugu could now fire 200 smaller explosions and 10 massive ones without drawbacks. Momo had reduced her lipid usage per creation, while Kota's confidence had increased. Koyoka had strengthened her ear jacks and hearing, and Mirko had gained new skills and some swordsmanship from Izuku. Kota had made progress in swordsmanship, and Z46 had improved as well. Izuku encouraged Kota to channel his quirk through the sword, and Kota succeeded, becoming excited at the revelation that they had discovered a new way to use elemental quirks. Izuku suggested they inform Aizawa and the Wild Pussycats about their findings. 2 days passed since the first day of training, and Kota now carried a wooden sword similar to Izuku's. Mandalay announced that there would be a test of courage that night, except for Denki and Monoma, who would be taking extra classes. Izuku emerged from a building carrying a large travel flask of coffee and offered it to Aizawa, who thanked him. Suddenly, the members of Aza Lane received a ping on their radars. Z46 and Unicorn rushed out of the building, followed by a confused Eri and Kota. Izuku sensed something unusual and they all engaged their riggings. He informed Aizawa that they had new contacts on their radars and prepared to investigate with an aircraft. Izuku launched an FA-18 Hornet, the fastest aircraft available, and reported to Aizawa that 10 unknown individuals, along with Mineta, were approaching the camp. Aizawa granted permission to engage with stunning rounds. Izuku followed through, and the heroes moved to capture the villains and Mineta, placing them in quirk-canceling cuffs. Mineta complained about Izuku's interference, but Izuku swiftly knocked him out. The police arrived to arrest the 11 villains, and Izuku spoke with Aizawa about how they had discovered the camp's location, which was supposed to be secret. Aizawa agreed that it was concerning, and Izuku realized that Monoma had been mouthing something to the villains. He discreetly informed Aizawa of his suspicion. Aizawa acknowledged the information and alerted the other heroes about the potential traitor. Izuku confronted Monoma, who responded with disdain. Aizawa informed Monoma that he was under arrest, and Izuku quickly cuffed him with quirk cancelers. Monoma was taken aback, especially when he noticed Vlad King recording the event. Aizawa stated that they had the evidence they needed. They returned to UA with Monoma in a police car, surprising Nizu, who demanded an explanation. Aizawa explained their reasoning and requested to borrow Shinso for further questioning. Nizu granted permission, and they proceeded to the interrogation room. When Shinso arrived, he confronted Monoma, who hesitated before nodding in acknowledgement of his betrayal. Nizu looked saddened by the revelation and instructed to call Monoma's parents. Izuku prepared to wake Monoma up for further questioning. When Mr. and Mrs. Monoma arrived, they were confused until Shinso used his mind control again, revealing the truth. Nizu asked if they would like to disown him. Monoma's eyes widened as his parents nodded, and Nizu moved Shinso to Class 1B. Nizu then informed Monoma that he would be going to Tartarus for giving the location of the camp to villains, nearly risking lives if not for Izuku. Monoma questioned what Izuku had that he did not. Nizu explained that Izuku had experience in war, wisdom, and was his adopted son. Everyone was shocked by Nizu's statements but remained silent. Izuku, feeling unnecessary, decided to leave. Nizu thanked him as he exited the room and headed home. Upon arrival, his wives approached him with questions. Bismarck asked if Monoma was truly the traitor, to which Izuku confirmed. Belfast inquired how he knew it was him, and Izuku explained that he had seen Monoma mouth something to the villains. Eri asked if that meant no more bad people would attack them, and Izuku reassured her that it simply meant they wouldn't have anyone informing the villains. After dinner, the children went to sleep in their rooms. Izuku stepped outside and jumped onto the Nimitz, reflecting on his original world and its calming night sky. Enterprise emerged from her hiding place and hugged him, agreeing that the night sky was still calming but suggested they head back inside as it was cold. Izuku agreed but first asked for her opinion on the class. Enterprise remarked that most were chaotic but good friends, noting that even Bakugo had grown to respect him. Izuku acknowledged her observations about the teachers, describing Aizawa as tired, All Might as loud, and Midnight as confusing. They decided to go inside and went to bed together. The first-year Hero Corps students were given a week off after summer camp, except for Izuku, who was called into a meeting with the top 20 heroes and the head of the Hero Commission. Nizu announced that they had located the hideout of the League of Villains, who had attacked both UA's USJ and the summer camp. Endeavor questioned why Izuku was present, claiming he had no involvement this time. Izuku explained that if the boss of the league was who they thought it was, he had every reason to be there. Endeavor pressed for clarification, and Izuku looked at All Might and Nizu, who proceeded to explain One for All and All for One to the group, except for the head of the Hero Commission. Endeavor then asked why they would give it to a quirkless kid like Izuku. Izuku responded that it shortens the life of anyone with a quirk, leaving Endeavor annoyed but silent. Nizu then asked Izuku who knew about One for All. Izuku listed everyone present, his wives, and the old guard of the secret. Nizu acknowledged this and Izuku requested permission from the Hero Commission to eliminate All for One if necessary. The head of the Hero Commission considered the request before agreeing, stating that her quirk allowed her to make the best choices in situations like this. Izuku thanked her, and she encouraged him to give it his all. With that, all the heroes left, and Izuku headed to the League's hideout. Hawks informed him that if he could fly, he would be in the first group. Izuku launched AFA-18 Hornet and jumped on top, confirming his ability to fly. They headed to Kamino City and located the hideout, which turned out to be an old bar. Lower-ranked heroes began evacuating civilians within a 2-mile radius around the hideout before the attack commenced. They successfully captured Shigaraki and Kurojiri. All for One then emerged from a room, shocked to see the heroes, but Izuku quickly punched him through a wall before he could react. All for One acknowledged Izuku's speed and expressed his intent to kill him, intrigued by the fact that Izuku was the 9th. Izuku declared that talking was pointless and activated One for All at 100%, enhancing his strength and abilities. He drew his sword and charged, dodging an air blast from All for One. Meanwhile, Izuku's wives watched the fight, with Belfast encouraging Nimitz and Bismarck expressing confidence in Izuku's strength. Back in the fight, All for One had missed every attack so far while Izuku managed to cut off his arm twice, though he kept regenerating. All for One questioned how Izuku was so fast, and Izuku replied that he had already mastered One for All. All for One then released fragments of his bones at Izuku, but he easily cut through them. Izuku charged in again, slicing off both of All for One's hands. Although All for One regenerated them, it was slower than before, prompting Izuku to smirk and comment on the slowing regeneration. All for One was shocked that Izuku had figured out the weakness of his regeneration so quickly. Izuku continued to dodge and deflect attacks before slicing open All for One's chest and firing a quirk interruption round into the wound. He then decapitated All for One, shocking everyone watching. Izuku shouted that All for One was dead and that the heroes were victorious, raising his sword in the air. The heroes cheered, having been informed of Izuku's permission to kill. Police rushed to the scene and approached Izuku with HNDCFFS, but Endeavor intervened. The police officer questioned the situation, but Endeavor explained that Izuku had permission from the head of the Hero Commission to eliminate All for One. The officers stood down, and Endeavor complimented Izuku on his performance. Later, in the head of the Hero Commission's office, she thanked Izuku for taking down All for One. Izuku replied that there was no need for thanks, as the world had shown him enough hospitality for him to do this. The head then showed him a picture of a Siren World portal device and asked if he knew what it was. Izuku recognized it and inquired where she had found it. She explained it was discovered in All for One's underground base, and Izuku noted that there were 3 devices down there. He calculated that there might be 6 unaccounted for, as he had destroyed one that was activated in the USJ, and his original world had sent in 10. The head asked what the devices did, and Izuku explained that they opened portals to another world inhabited by sirens, who conquer other worlds for power and land. He detailed the 3 classes of sirens, low, mid, and high rank, with a royal class that had never been proven to exist. The head listened intently as Izuku recounted how the Azur Lane Alliance had fought off the sirens and destroyed all 10 devices in his original world, though they had hundreds of ships, while only 8 remained in this world. Fortunately, if they took them out quickly after activation, there wouldn't be many sirens. The head acknowledged Midoriya's input and inquired if he knew how to create more ships. Izuku confirmed that a warship and a linked wisdom cube were necessary, but warned that the person using the wisdom cube would lose their memories from before they became a ship, although their personality would remain unchanged. The head suggested they should have volunteers for this process. Izuku explained that individuals would still age until they turned 18, at which point they would stop aging. When asked about the schematics for wisdom cubes, Izuku admitted he didn't have any but could draw them. The head expressed gratitude for this. 5 days had passed since the Kamino incident, and UA had successfully convinced the students' parents about a dorm system. Meanwhile, the Hero Commission informed other countries about the Siren World portal devices and how to handle them if found. All countries recognized the threat and created their own version of Azur Lane, with Izuku as the commander. Izuku reflected on becoming the commander of Azur Lane again, and his wives confirmed that it seemed fitting. He mentioned that they might have other ships joining them soon, having given the blueprints to the head of the Hero Commission. Bismarck questioned the wisdom of this decision, but Izuku insisted they needed reinforcements. As they left the house for class, they noticed that the port had expanded and 5 new ships were docked. Izuku realized that the noises they heard the previous night were related to this development. Upon arriving at class, they found a note directing them to the auditorium where the head of the Hero Commission awaited. The head inquired about compatibility with the ships, and Izuku explained that it was primarily a concern for males, who needed 100% compatibility for successful linking. For females, it didn't matter, as any female could become a ship. However, destroyers would initially link only to young children. The head noted that they hadn't created any destroyers that day, so they were in the clear. They continued chatting until Class 1A, Class 1B, and the Big 3 arrived. Aizawa questioned the head's presence, and she explained they were there to recruit new ships for Azur Lane and were seeking volunteers, though there was a downside. Aizawa pressed for details, and Izuku clarified that individuals would lose all memories from before linking, though their personalities would remain intact. The head added that they would contact the parents for farewells before linking. Momo asked if they could know which ships they would be linking to beforehand. The head listed the available ships: Ijin Yura, HMS Neptune, USS Washington, KMS Thuringen, and Ijin Takao. Bakugu smirked and volunteered, prompting the head to lead him for a compatibility check. Aizawa sought clarification on compatibility, and Izuku explained that males needed 100% compatibility, while females would always link successfully. Bakugu emerged from the booth, slightly annoyed, and the head revealed his compatibility was 60%. Izuku reassured him that this was a decent score, as most were around 20%, and compatibility could grow over time. Bakugu's annoyance lessened upon hearing this. Momo, Uraraka, Koyoka, Mirko, and Nijire all volunteered, and the head thanked them. They waited for the parents of the 5 to arrive. Mr. Yoarozu expressed concern about his daughter, and the head reassured him that everything was fine, explaining the need for their presence due to the project's drawbacks. Mrs. Hato inquired about the drawbacks, and the head reiterated that their daughters would lose their memories of the time before linking to the Wisdom Cube. Mr. Uraraka questioned Ochako's seriousness about the decision, and she affirmed her commitment. The parents, though emotional, accepted their children's choices. Izuku reassured them that no one had died from this process and that the girls would only lose their memories, not their personalities. Mrs. Jiro expressed skepticism, to which Izuku responded that he had experienced the same situation when he was younger. The girls approached the wisdom cubes, and Izuku instructed them to go to the one that called out to them the most. Jiro chose Ijin Yura, Nijire selected HMS Neptune, Mirko went for USS Washington, Uraraka picked KMS Thuringen, and Momo chose Ijin Takao. They touched the wisdom cubes, which quickly absorbed them, and after stepping back, they opened their eyes, confused about their surroundings. Izuku rushed in, and the 5 ships saluted him. He instructed them to relax and explained who they were and what had happened. Their parents entered and embraced them, and Izuku introduced them as their biological parents. Mirko recognized her mother, and Mrs. Usagami expressed concern about the confusion caused by the memory loss. Izuku clarified that this was normal and would settle down once they adjusted. The following day, after the 5 new teammates linked to the wisdom cubes, the rest of the class began moving into dorms near Izuku's house. Aizawa informed them about the dorm layout and assigned rooms, allowing for personal decoration. Ida inquired about the Midoriya family's living situation, and Aizawa explained they would remain in their house. Everyone went outside, and Izuku pointed to his house by the port, explaining that it was where all of Aza Lane's current members had their warships docked. A green-haired woman approached the group, introducing herself as Inko Shimura, their caretaker in the dorms. Bakugu greeted her warmly, and Inko was surprised to see a boy who resembled her. Inko asked for Izuku's name, and he introduced himself as Izuku, Nimitz, Midoriya. She expressed her pleasure at meeting him. Over the next 3 days, nothing major occurred, but Inko grew close to Class 1A, especially Izuku, effectively becoming a mother figure to him. One morning, she gently urged him to wake up, and he responded that he was awake. Inko announced that she was making breakfast at the dorm and invited everyone to join her. After completing his morning routine, Izuku woke up his daughters and wives before heading over to the dorms. When he arrived, he greeted Inko, who smiled brightly at him, realizing that he saw her as his mother. This revelation brought her immense joy, and as other students began to gather, Bakugu noticed Izuku's embarrassment and teased him about it. Inko explained her happiness to Bakugu, who was surprised to learn that Izuku now considered her family. Just then, Nizu rushed into the room, leaping onto the table and presenting some papers for Inko to sign. After she signed them, Nizu dashed out, leaving Izuku puzzled about what had just happened. Inko revealed that she would be officially changing her name to Midoriya, solidifying her role as Izuku's mother. Bakugu stared into space, realizing that Izuku was now essentially his cousin. He was about to express his disbelief when Inko playfully scolded him for his language, reminding him not to teach Izuku or her grandchildren any bad words. After breakfast, they all headed to class, where the younger students were comfortably seated on their guardians' laps. Aizawa informed the class that they would be taking the provincial license exam the next day, except for the Midoriya family, who would be patrolling the city. He handed out special licenses that granted them permissions for various situations, including taking command during emergencies. Izuku acknowledged the instructions, and Aizawa mentioned that the new ships would operate under the Midoriya family's orders until they completed 5 missions. As the day progressed, Aizawa instructed everyone to board the bus, leaving the Midoriya family to patrol. Akagi, Kaga, and Enterprise deployed reconnaissance planes to scout the area while Izuku monitored communications. Suddenly he received alarming news that Overhaul had escaped from Tartarus and was heading straight for UA, likely targeting Eri. Determined to protect his daughter, Izuku and his team intercepted Overhaul before he could reach UA. Izuku used a quirk interruption round, but Overhaul's giant form still posed a significant threat. He instructed his teammates to provide fire support while he prepared to confront Overhaul directly. As they engaged him, Izuku demanded to know Overhaul's intentions. When Overhaul revealed he was after Eri, Izuku's protective instincts kicked in. In a fierce confrontation, he incapacitated Overhaul and ensured he would no longer pose a threat to his daughter, leaving him for the authorities. Paramedics arrived to tend to Overhaul, puzzled by his injuries. Izuku explained that he had acted to protect his daughter, and the paramedics understood his reasoning. Later, as the Aza Lane members returned to UA, Izuku greeted them and inquired about their licenses. They proudly displayed their achievements, and he shared the news of his encounter with Overhaul, which shocked everyone except Bakugo, who had already guessed the situation. Bakugo respected Izuku even more after witnessing his determination. The following day in class, Izuku asked Bakugo about his hero name, which he had yet to decide. After some discussion, Bakugo settled on Ground Zero, appreciating the name despite the potential for a nickname. Just then, Izuku received a mission alert for Aza Lane and quickly gathered the team for a new assignment involving a Siren World portal device detected in a villain base in America. They prepared for their mission, boarding a cargo plane equipped with parachutes. Once they arrived over the villain base, Izuku signaled for them to jump, and they descended without being detected. He reminded everyone of their mission parameters and the necessity to incapacitate enemies while securing the device. As they moved through the base, Izuku communicated with Command, receiving updates on enemy movements. He and his team executed their plan efficiently, incapacitating several villains before Izuku confronted a high-ranking enemy in a room. After extracting crucial information about the device's location, he knocked the villain out and returned to his team, ensuring the area remained clear for extraction. With their mission progressing smoothly, Izuku and his team prepared to confront the remaining threats and secure the device, ready to protect their world from any potential invasion. Akagi grabbed the device. Izuku pointed his sword at the neck of the man before him. He inquired about the research being conducted. The man explained that he was tasked with extracting power from the device. Command informed Izuku that the man was Dr. David Shield, a leading scientist who had been missing for 2 weeks, and instructed him to take Dr. Shield back with them. Izuku agreed and asked Dr. Shield to follow him as they escorted both Akagi and Dr. Shield to the roof. Izuku contacted Command to check on their extraction. Command informed him that the chopper would arrive in 30 seconds. When the chopper landed, it alerted the villains of their presence, but it was too late. They were already leaving with their objectives secured. Izuku reported to Command that both the portal device and Dr. Shield were safe, and Command congratulated him on completing the mission. Upon arriving at the military base, they were greeted by the heads of the Hero Commission from America and Japan. The head of the Japan branch commended Aza Lane for their success and turned to Dr. Shield to ask about his work. Dr. Shield explained that he was investigating how to extract power from the device, which Izuku referred to as a portal device. The head of the America branch noted that there might be 10 such devices in the world, with 1 confirmed destroyed and 4 stored in the Hero Commission vault. Izuku suggested that Dr. Shield continue his research, as draining the devices of their power would reduce their threat level. The head of the Japan branch agreed, provided Dr. Shield was on board. Dr. Shield expressed his agreement, stating that this could lead to cleaner energy for the world, with the potential to power all of Tokyo for a year. The head of the America branch concluded that Aza Lane should return to UA and rest, acknowledging their hard work. After returning to UA, Izuku found a stack of paperwork waiting for him in his office. He asked Belfast for assistance with it. As they sorted through the documents, they discovered that a new team of 10 ships had been formed to operate in the west, while his team would continue in the east. Izuku noted that this arrangement made things easier. Belfast inquired about the new team, and Izuku explained that it had been established while they were returning from their mission. Akagi asked about their plans, and Izuku stated that since they technically didn't have to attend school, they would focus on looking after Eri, Unicorn, and Z-46, deploying when necessary. Just then the bell rang. Izuku went downstairs and found Nizu and Aizawa with an unfamiliar individual. He greeted them and asked for the newcomer's name. The individual introduced herself as Maisie Williams, the overseer assigned to their team for all missions. Nizu confirmed that she would be living in the 1A dorms and had already set up her room, and she was there to get to know the team. Izuku welcomed her inside, and they all exchanged introductions before Maisie received an alert message. She informed them that someone had activated a world portal device nearby, just 2 miles to the west. The team quickly left, while Maisie headed to the control room. Upon arrival, they found Endeavor engaged in battle with sirens. As one was about to strike him, Bismarck intervened, destroying the threat. Endeavor acknowledged their swift arrival and instructed Izuku's team to deal with the sirens while he searched for the device to destroy it. He mentioned seeing a more humanoid figure lurking just inside the portal. Izuku agreed that it was likely a high-class siren, but they needed to be cautious. Endeavor dashed off to locate the device as Izuku's team continued to eliminate the sirens, reducing their numbers to just 5. Suddenly, a voice interrupted them, revealing a figure stepping out of the portal. Izuku demanded to know who she was. The figure introduced herself as Empress 3 of the Sirens. Izuku realized they were indeed facing a royal-class siren. As the portal unexpectedly shut, Empress looked shocked, questioning what they had done. Izuku explained that they had simply asked the number 2 hero to destroy the device, and then he declared it was time to fight. Activating his power, Izuku launched into battle, drawing his sword as the rest of the team opened fire on Empress and the remaining sirens. Once the lesser threats were dealt with, Izuku leaped and slashed at Empress's cannons. She demanded to know about the lightning surrounding him, to which he cryptically replied it was his secret. He then unleashed a powerful punch, sending her crashing to the ground. As he aimed for her head, he accidentally severed her arm instead. Empress retaliated with a punch and laser blasts, but Izuku managed to evade most of the attacks. He taunted her about the weakness of her punches compared to her lasers. As Empress faced off against the girls, Izuku jumped again, destroying one of her guns. He boasted about his strength, and she vowed to prove him wrong. With a swift kick, he sent her crashing into a building and charged at her as she recovered, slashing her throat. With the royal-class siren eliminated, Izuku reported to command that the mission was complete and the world portal device had been destroyed by Endeavor. Command acknowledged the report and inquired about their encounter. Izuku informed them that they had faced and defeated the first known royal-class siren, Empress. Command logged the information. Endeavor confirmed that it was over, and Izuku noted that they had eliminated a significant threat. Endeavor expressed satisfaction at the progress made and asked about the captured devices. Izuku explained that they had someone working on extracting power from the devices and then prepared to leave. After bidding farewell, Izuku and his team returned to UA. Izuku reflected on their progress, noting that they had taken down 6 sirens, with potentially 4 more to go. Kaga agreed that this would make life easier, while Nijire commented on the difficulty of the recent battle. Izuku speculated that Empress might have been the weakest of the royal-class sirens, citing her relatively weak punches. Akagi questioned his reasoning, and Izuku elaborated that she was only slightly stronger than all for one. Enterprise found this information interesting, and they agreed to think more about it the next day. As they settled in for the night, Izuku and his wives exchanged goodnights. Nijire received an updated license while the other 4 obtained full Aza lane licenses. Izuku wondered how it felt to be full-fledged heroes now. Momo expressed her happiness about being a hero, while Mirko noted that things didn't feel too different since they still lived at UA. Izuku acknowledged this but mentioned that it wouldn't be for long, as the Hero Commission had just completed their new base, which heroes referred to as their agency. Uraraka was excited about having a place to go, and Izuku shared that the new base would include dorm buildings, a port, and other necessary facilities. Nijire commented that it sounded like a hassle to clean, to which Izuku replied that his father was providing them with 20 worker bots for maintenance, along with additional support. The team set off on foot to their new base, accompanied by Eri, Unicorn, and Z46, who all wanted to hold Izuku's hands. Upon arriving, Izuku announced that this was their new home and added that they no longer had to attend school since they all had licenses. As they entered, they were greeted by the head of the Hero Commission, Inko, and Maisie. The head welcomed them to their new agency and introduced some people who would assist them as heroes. Inko assured them that she would still be their caretaker while managing reported crimes, and Maisie confirmed she would continue to be their voice in their ears. Izuku was glad to have them both working with him. Inko insisted that she wouldn't let her son work alone, and Akagi greeted Inko warmly, who requested that everyone call her Mom, a title she extended to all of her son's wives. After settling in and decorating their rooms, the team split up for patrol. Momo, Nijire, Uraraka, Mirko, and Jiro headed into the city, while Izuku and his wives ventured out onto the ocean. Enterprise asked if the others would be okay, and Izuku reassured her that there hadn't been many major villains since All for One, but they could never be too sure. Kaga reminded him that they had helped Night Eye deal with the last of the overhaul Yakuza in the past 2 weeks. Izuku noted that there were no major A-rank villains involved, only B-rank or lower. Suddenly, Izuku's radio crackled to life. Maisie informed him that they had received a request from the Coast Guard to assist in incapacitating some armed Yakuza vessels transporting drags into the country. Izuku acknowledged the request and instructed everyone to move at full speed to intercept the vessels. They arrived just in time to guard the vessels until the Coast Guard could take over. Upon their arrival at the port, a group of reporters gathered and began questioning them. One reporter asked if they were heroes or part of the Coast Guard, and if they were heroes, what prompted them to pursue the vessels. Izuku confirmed their status as heroes and explained that the vessels belonged to a Yakuza group involved in drag trafficking. Another reporter inquired about his hero name, to which Izuku proudly introduced himself as the heroic carrier Nimitz. He then flashed his signature smile, reassuring everyone before they returned to their patrol route. Kaga complimented Izuku on how he handled the interview, and Izuku explained that Midnight had helped him practice with mock interviews when he first arrived. Bismarck thought it was kind of her, while Belfast asked if Midnight was always like that. Izuku shared that she found it cute when he stuttered under pressure. He decided it was time to head back to base, and Maisie informed him that the others were just finishing their patrol, making their timing perfect. Upon returning to the agency, they submitted their report to the Hero Commission. Z46 asked if Izuku would join them for dinner, but he replied that he needed a moment to finish the report. Z46 mentioned that Eri was looking for him, and Unicorn added that Grandma had made katsudon, Izuku's favorite dish. He quickly wrapped up the report and headed down for dinner with his new family, which was filled with cheers and happiness. 2 weeks passed, and the team managed to capture 2 world portal devices, while Izuku's team captured 1, leaving 1 device yet to be located. Izuku called the team to his office over the base's PA system. Curious about the meeting, the team arrived shortly after. Izuku explained that the second internship at UA was approaching, and they needed to discuss potential candidates. He suggested Bakugu as a good choice, which Bismarck and Kaga agreed with, noting his improved personality over the year. Mirko and Momo also supported the idea, stating that Bakugu would be the only one able to learn from them. Izuku decided to put in a request for Bakugu and dismissed the team. However, Uraraka, Momo, Mirko, Jiro, and Nijire had something to ask him. They expressed their desire for Izuku to go out with them, leaving him shocked as he looked to his wives for guidance. They confirmed that they had discussed it and accepted the proposal. Izuku then left the room, returning with 5 rings, which surprised the girls. He explained that they would perform oaths that would grant them a power boost and allow them to sense each other, symbolizing their engagement. After completing the oaths and receiving their power boosts, the first day of the second internship arrived. Izuku spotted Bakugu and called him over. Bakugu hesitated, unsure if he should refer to Izuku by his hero name or not, but Izuku clarified that he should use it while on patrol. They exchanged greetings, and Bakugu inquired about any updates on the siren situation. Izuku informed him that they theoretically had only 1 device left. The two talked as they made their way back to the base, where Bakugu greeted Inko and Izuku's wives. He was surprised to see that Izuku had all 10 of them now. Izuku shrugged, unsure how it happened, and told Bakugo to get into his hero suit because they were going on patrol. Bakugo agreed and they set off. The patrol was uneventful, aside from a conversation about what would happen once the sirens were dealt with. Izuku assured Bakugo that they would continue being heroes, helping everyone they could. Bakugo expressed relief, not wanting to lose Izuku to retirement just yet, to which Izuku reminded him that they were the same age. They both laughed, but their amusement quickly turned serious as they sprang into action when a bank robbery occurred. After dealing with the situation, they returned to enjoy a good time with their friends and family. The next day, Izuku informed Bakugo that today would be slightly different from yesterday. He explained that Bakugo would be leading one of the patrols to assess his leadership skills, as being a hero often required guiding others through dangerous situations. Bakugo acknowledged that this experience would be beneficial. Belfast added that it would also help Bakugo if he decided to start his own agency. Bakugo then inquired about his team and the area they would patrol. Izuku assigned him Mirko, Bismarck, Nijire, Jiro, and Uraraka to patrol the eastern half of the city, while he would take the rest of the team to cover the western half. Bakugo confirmed he understood the assignment, and they set off in their respective directions. Izuku's group encountered no significant incidents, only a few fans asking for autographs. He noticed a plushie of Akagi and Kaga, which surprised the two mentioned. Kaga pointed out that Belfast was holding a plushie of Izuku, and Akagi agreed. Izuku reassured them that it was fine, while Belfast blushed, expressing how cute the plushie was. Momo wished there were more in stock or that she had seen it first. Izuku held back laughter to avoid embarrassing his wives, and Enterprise thanked him for his restraint. Izuku suggested they continue their patrol, feeling that something interesting might happen. As they continued, they managed to stop a few minor crimes and thwart a bank robbery before returning to the base, where they found Bakugo and his team. Izuku asked them to report to his office. Once there, he inquired about Bakugo's patrol experience. Bakugo reported that they had stopped a few minor crimes, including a purse snatcher and a car thief, but nothing major. Izuku then asked Bismarck for her assessment of Bakugo's leadership. She noted that while he didn't stop for autographs like Izuku, he led the team efficiently. Izuku explained to Bakugo the importance of stopping for autographs, as it built trust with the citizens. Bakugo admitted he didn't understand this, prompting Izuku to share that he had spent 2 years learning at UA with Nizu and taking classes to improve his analytical skills. He commended Bakugo for his performance and encouraged him to maintain that level of leadership throughout the week. The week passed quickly, filled with the team stopping numerous minor crimes and recapturing a few major villains, including Toga and Dabi. Bakugo completed his internship with Izuku's agency, gaining valuable insights into leadership. Weeks later, the final device had still not been located, but Izuku was thriving in his hero career, well-liked by the city's residents. One day, he and his team were called to UA, where they were greeted by Nizu and All Might. Nizu announced that they had found the last device, which was active on an island. They were assembling as many heroes and Navy vessels as possible, with the Western team already on their way. All Might requested that Izuku lead the strike force, and Izuku agreed, eager to proceed. Izuku departed with his team, leading Japan's forces to the island where they engaged the sirens, buying time for the Western team and additional ships to arrive. Before the battle, Izuku warned his team that it would be dangerous, emphasizing that the sirens were not human and that they needed to aim to win. The heroes and Navy personnel rallied in agreement. The fleet bombarded the island, aiming to destroy the device quickly to limit the sirens' numbers. Aircraft carriers launched planes for air support. Izuku expressed hope to Belfast that they could achieve their objective without casualties. Belfast believed it would be easier this time since they had the element of surprise. However, Bismarck was struck by a laser shot in the shoulder. Izuku rushed to her side, concerned but relieved to hear that it hadn't hit any vital areas. He quickly bandaged her wound while continuing to fight. Izuku asked Akagi when the Western fleet would arrive, and she informed him they were 30 minutes out. Kaga expressed frustration at the lack of progress against the device, which seemed elusive. Izuku ordered the battleships to change targets to the sirens while he moved onto the island to locate the device. Once the bombardment ceased, Izuku dashed in, searching for the device amid the chaos. He soon spotted a clearing with 5 high-ranked sirens surrounding the device. Activating One for All at full power, he drew his sword and leaped into the fray, taking down one of the sirens by surprise. He taunted the remaining sirens, then retreated into the trees while firing at them. He called in an A-10 thunderbolt to strike the device. The familiar sound of the A-10's gunfire erupted, raining bullets down on the sirens and destroying the device. Izuku celebrated their success and returned to the fleet, which was finishing off the last of the sirens with the help of the Western Fleet. He learned that they had arrived while he was on the island, and Belfast explained that faster ships had been sent ahead to provide support. Izuku greeted the Western team, noting their larger fleet. The Western captain inquired why they had twice the number of ships, to which Izuku speculated it was due to their already experienced ships. They exchanged pleasantries before both fleets returned home, relieved to find that there had only been 2 casualties on their side, despite having 87 injured. Izuku marveled at their luck, grateful for the outcome of the battle. None of which are fatal. Izuku expressed his concern about the grief the families of the 2 who had fallen would feel when they learned the news. Bismarck acknowledged that their sacrifices had saved many lives through their service. Nijire wondered what their next steps would be now that all the devices were destroyed. Izuku declared that they would continue being heroes and provide hope to those in need. Nizu, perched on Izuku's shoulder with a smug expression, affirmed that he was glad to hear Izuku was still up for it. Everyone turned to see Nizu sitting there, and Izuku questioned how he managed to get on his shoulder, given they were 5 miles off the coast of Japan. Nizu simply replied that he had his ways. Upon their return, they were welcomed by Class 1A in a massive group hug.